Welcome and good morning to every one of you. Thank you so much for clicking onto this video. Today we will be continuing our series on research methodology. Let me give you a brief for those who have come onto this video for the first time. We are doing a lecture series on research methodology. Today we will continue with our fourth unit. So this is the second part of our fourth unit. As you can see, I have divided this lecture series into 5 units, and today we will continue with our fourth unit and second part. If you want to see the previous lectures of these units, you can go to the description. Over there you will find the playlist of the videos of rest of the videos, and you can see the previous videos. If you want to download the PDF of this lecture, after the class, the PDF will be uploaded on Impractica classes. And from there, you can download the PDFs that will be available to you. Last of all, I would like to request all of you to kindly like the video. That will give a big boost to the algorithm and it will help to reach this video to more students. Thank you so much for listening on to this, and let's continue with our lecture. So we will start this we have done. So today we will start with data collection. So mainly there are two types of data collection. The first one is known as data collection. So basically there are two types of data collection. The first one is known as primary data collection. First one is known as the primary. And second one is known as secondary. So what are these things? Primary data collection is data collection when we collect the data on our own. That we collect the data from our own sources. Suppose you question someone and you talk to someone and collect the data, or you are giving a questionnaire to someone and they are filling up the questionnaire, or you go from house to house, door to door to collect the data through survey. That is all known as the primary data collection. And what is the secondary data collection? That you collect some data from other sources. So, for suppose you collect data that the population of India is the highest in all over the world. So, you have not collected the data by your own self. You have gone on to some government website and then you have collected the data. So, that is known as secondary data. Another example can be from books. See, UNESCO and World Heritage Sites, these all books and this all covers all the data collection from different parts of the world. They collect data from different parts of the world. You can also collect the your data from these different sources, and this will also be known as secondary data collection. So in this chapter we will be mainly concerned with primary data collection. If we talk about primary data collection during our PhD, we deal with 4 types of primary data collection. First one is our interview method, in which we go to the subject and collect the data from them. Second one is mail. We mail the questionnaire to the concerned person and they fill up the data and we get the information. Third is our questionnaire. Questionnaire, as by the word you can understand that there are many questions which are listed down and the respondents answer according to that question. And the fourth one is schedule. Now the main difference between schedule is that we hire some other person to collect our data for us. So we suppose you are doing a research and you are person A. So you are telling person B to collect information from different sources, and then person B will give the results back to you, and you will do the particular research. So that is known as schedule. We'll talk in details about this. I am just giving an overview. So in primary data collection during our PhD, we do mainly 4 types of primary data collection. They are interview, mail, questionnaire, and schedule. For easier understanding and for the purpose that we will understand it in a easier way, I have seen it in the table form. I've listed down the points in table form. I've listed down the points in table form, which will be easier for us to understand. So let us start with the first one. First, we will understand the difference between personal interview and mailed collection. If we talk about personal interview versus mailed collection, the first difference that we can see is administration. Means how do we collect the data? When we go about in personal interview, it is always responses are face to face. The responses that we collect are always face to face. That means we meet the person and collect the data. And in mailed what happens? We mail there is some problem. Let me check. Let me take another page. Add page. If we talk about this in administration, how we provide the questionnaire to that particular person. In personal interview, we go to that person, and in mailed collection, we mail whatever our question is, we mail that particular question to that person. Second, if we come on to cost, the cost in the first case is high because we have to travel to that person and collect the information from them. In the second case, the cost is low because we have to only send an email. So if the person has an email ID, we only have to send an email sitting in one place. So in this, the cost is low. Then we will come on to the time. The first one is time consuming, obviously, because you have to go to that particular person and collect the data. And the second one, mailed collection, is quick. Then we response rate, if we see, it is high and the second one is low. If we see that we go to a particular person and ask them some questions, they are more tentative to give that answer. So they look forward to give that answer. But in mail collection, as you can see, that we receive many mails, and it is very usual that we ignore many mails. So the response rate is low. Data richness. Data richness is what? What kind of response are we getting? Data richness is the kind of response. The kind of response. There is some error in this. Okay. So what is the data richness? The kind of response that we are getting. So when we get personal interview, it is usually seen that the information that we get are usually correct. And in when we go to the mail collection, it is usually incorrect, because if we see that in email many of the things are ignored, and in email if even we give incorrect answer or incorrect response, or we just ignore the mail, no one will see to it. So in mail collection we get limited data, and in personal interview we get richer data. Then we come on to flexibility. So when we do personal interview, it is highly flexible. We can select what persons we want, what questions we want, what will be the response. According to that, we can change our questions. But in mail collection, there is a set questionnaire, and the questionnaire is set to a number of people. Whether they are interested or not, we send them the questionnaire. So that is why it is called inflexible. Then we come on to complexity of questions. When we do personal interview, we can maintain complex questions, because we can ask them questions, we can explain them the questions if they don't understand. And when we send mail interview, the questionnaire has to be simple, because the questionnaire has to be understood by the respondent. If the respondent doesn't itself understand the question, how will he fill in the response? So it is kept simple. Then we come on to the interviewer bias. Interviewer bias, when we collect the data on ourself, it has a higher potential that it will have some kind of interviewer bias. Bias means what? That interviewer will have their own opinion related to that particular data. And in mailed interview, we have lower potential for the same case. Then we move on to personal standardization. Standardization means that what standard we have set, like we can change or not change. Standardization. In personal interview, we can change according to us, but in mail interview, once you have mailed someone the questions, you cannot change that. Then control over respondent. As we have discussed it before, that when we do personal interview, we have control whom to choose for the interview, and in mail collection we have lower control. Then in personal interview, literacy is not required, because we can read them the questionnaire, we can send them the questionnaire whether they know it or not. And in mail collection, we have to see that our respondents or our sample are educated or literate people, because we are sending them a questionnaire. They need to use the email ID, they need to know how to respond on Google, all these things they need to know. So in that case, literacy is required. If we come on to the geographic reach, as you can understand, in personal interview, our geographic reach will be limited. Only we can go to the certain persons and collect the data from them. But in mail, you can send the mail to different parts of the country, and you can also send the mail to the different parts of the world. So geographic reach is much more in mail collection. Then technology dependence, as you can understand, in the case of personal interview, it is very low, and in mail collection, it has to be quite high. Then respondent anonymity. Respondent, when we talk to the particular person, we know that the particular person is giving us the response. But in mail collection, as you can see in many of the mail collection, you will see that they do not even collect our email ID, or the person who is responding, the name is not even us. So it has higher chances of anonymity. Next, we will go on to questionnaire versus schedule. So the main thing that we have to understand in questionnaire and schedule. Let's see if it works or not. No, it is not working. So the main thing that we have to understand, the main basic difference between questionnaire schedule. Questionnaire is the data which is collected by the researcher himself. That is why it is called self-administered. As you can see the point over here, it is called self-administered. And in the case of schedule, it is collected by a third person who is known as an enumerator. So in the terms of research, the third person will be known as enumerator, who will collect the data and collect the information and give it to that particular researcher. And the particular researcher will then continue on with his research. So that is the main difference between questionnaire and schedule. Questionnaire is done by the researcher himself or herself, and schedule is done, data collection is done by a third person who is known as the enumerator. So we have understood the administration. Now we will come on to the respondent interaction. In respondent interaction, the questionnaire is just provided to that particular person or the respondent, and the answer is collected. While in the case of enumerator, the enumerator goes and talks to the public and then collects the data. So respondent interaction is more. Cost. Cost in the case of questionnaire, we are giving the questionnaire by ourselves and collecting the data. So in questionnaire, the cost is generally low. But when we are arranging a schedule type, we have to give some money to the enumerator. Usually, we give some money or some advantage is given to the enumerator for which he is doing that particular work. So in this, the cost is generally high. If we talk about the time, usually in questionnaire, the time required is generally low because we distribute the questionnaire at once. But collecting the questionnaire, collecting the response, that will depend upon when the person will give that particular response. And in the case of schedule, as you can understand, the enumerator has go to person and collect the data from that particular person. So it will take more time. And in response rate questionnaire, the response rate is generally lower. As you can understand, the questionnaire is given to particular person, and whether they reply to that particular question is upon them. But in schedule, the respondent goes himself and collects the data, so the response is generally on the higher side. Data accuracy, as you can understand, if someone is filling up the questionnaire on their own, generally the data is less accurate. As we have seen in mailed interview, the data is less accurate. And when the enumerator is going by himself or herself, the data accuracy is generally higher. Then we come on to the complexity of questions. The person has to self-administer. That's why the complexity of questions is low. And on the second hand, if we go on to the schedule, the complexity of question can be high because the enumerator is present to provide an questionnaire, to provide the understanding of the particular questions. Now we will go on to the interviewer bias. Because it is a self-administered process, so questionnaire, the bias is low, and in schedule the enumerator is present, so bias will be high. Respondent anonymity, it prefers, the questionnaire gives anonymity more because it has to be self-administered, and whether the person is giving his right name or not, it can never be known. And in schedule case, it offers less anonymity. Then we come on to literacy. If we talk about literacy, that person has to be quite literate to respond to the questionnaire, because the person has to understand the particular language and give their answers according to that question. And in schedule, the enumerator will do all the work. The person can be literate or may not be so much literate, and it will be easier for them to fill up the schedule. Then our sample dish, in case of questionnaire, we can send the questionnaire to a large number of people, to a large group of people. And in case of schedule, we can send the questionnaire to less number of people. Last we come on to the training of a personnel. So there is no training needed for that personnel. And in schedule, we obviously have to train that personnel who has to go to the respondent, the enumerator, and collect the information and data from the particular person. So that is all for the lecture for today. I hope you have understood how we collect the primary data, the 4 types of primary data collection that we do. And if you have any question related to this chapter, kindly you can ask those questions in the comment section, and I will surely reply to that comment section. Thank you so much for watching this video. So we will meet in the next video, where we will complete our unit 4. Thank you so much for watching this video.